I'm supposed to have this mic out like this, so I got to remember that. Thank you so much, Clyde, for your remarks. I am a political science professor, and today I would like to talk to you about our universities. Our universities today are in a terrible state because the pursuit of truth has been destroyed. This is a tragedy because universities are an incredibly important institution because they have a number of very important functions. First of all, they disseminate knowledge to the student body as well as the general public. As well, they are the place where professionals are trained. So if you have crazy ideas in the university, don't be surprised when you have a lot of crazy ideas in various institutions in Canada. And finally, universities are a bulwark against authoritarianism, and that's what you see in totalitarian regimes is one of the first areas where you have purges is in the universities, so that what is being disseminated will be propaganda, not education. And in universities, this situation has been unfolding since the 1960s. So it's been quite a long time where it's been occurring. And it began with the relativist position, which is known as postmodernism, where subjectivity replaced objectivity, and there was a denial that a universal truth. So it denied that a universal truth could be pursued. And this allowed what is called identity politics to enter into the academy. And what this means is that it's claimed that identities of groups that perceive themselves to be oppressed must be affirmed in order for them to overcome their oppression. And this formed the basis of a number of departments with names such as Black Studies, Women's Studies, and now we even have what's called Queer Studies. And although these were marginal at first, these departments gradually began to take over the machinery of institutions, of universities, through equity, diversity, and inclusion offices. And these offices now argue that people should not be hired on the basis of merit, but on the basis of their identity characteristics. And in order to ensure that their lack of qualifications are not exposed, inclusion demands that no one can say anything that is upsetting to people who are what is called diversity hires. And I observed this at my own institution, Mount Royal University. In 2008, Mount Royal University was a wonderful institution. In 2014, however, we were told that we would be indigenizing the university. This meant that there were targets for increasing the number of Aboriginal students and professors, and to disguise the standards that would be lowered in order to do this, we were told that Indigenous ways of knowing would be incorporated into the curriculum and that they must be respected. But because I have no respect for Indigenous ways of knowing, these generally amount to unsystematic observations and unscientific beliefs, which are contrary to science. I became the target of an academic mobbing, and that was instigated by an Indigenous scholar activist, and I was wrongfully terminated from that university in December 2021. And this is because these Indigenous scholar activists and trans activists felt unsafe when I challenged views that were that challenged their identity affirmation. So my case is covered extensively on a website, www.wokeacademy.info, and so I don't want to go into many details about it here. Instead, I would like to explain how a number of universities are following on the same path. I've been traveling across the country trying to get professors to book rooms for me, and this results in cancellations because of the psychological harm that my words are supposed to claim, and the need for elaborate security assessments and fees due to safety concerns. This has happened at 4 universities who are now included in my University's Hall of Shame. Along with Mount Royal University, these include the University of Lethbridge, the University of Regina, Thompson Rivers University, and the University of Manitoba. Although there are some legal and political remedies for this situation, what is needed is a cultural change. And I've been trying to change the culture at these universities and others through the introduction of what has been called spectrum street epistemology. This is a method that has been developed by Peter Boghossian, a professor who was at Portland State, who was pushed out of that university. And with this method, you don't need a university to rent you space or allocate you space. You just need to go out on the street and lay down 7 mats. And I just provided them as a prop so you could sort of see what they look like. So they're really easy. I've been carting them around with me everywhere I go. So I have my university right here with me, and they say strongly agree, neutral, and they go in a spectrum from strongly agree to strongly disagree, with neutral in the middle. And what you do is you have a contentious claim, and we just heard Charlie Kirk making claims there, and you could do all of the claims that he's making, and you get people to stand on a mat, whether they strongly agree, and then you ask them why it is that they're standing on that mat, and they have to articulate their reasons for that. And this is what I'm going to be doing at the University of Manitoba next week. And we are going to put forth the claim, the grave error at Kamloops is a hoax. That's the claim. If a participant strongly agrees with this claim, you ask them why they're so certain about that and what evidence they would need to make them less certain. Would a list of missing children from that time make them less certain? How about excavations that showed the existence of even one set of remains? To this point, however, not one child has been reported missing, and no excavations have been done, in spite of the fact that $12.1 million of public funding has been allocated for this purpose. What spectrum street epistemology session does most of all is it has the capacity to break down self-censorship. Many professors believe that the announcement made in May 27th, 2021, that the remains of 215 children had been confirmed at Kamloops was a deception. They are afraid to say anything publicly, however, for fear that they will be ostracized and suffer the same fate as myself and have their work environment poisoned. As a result, the silence makes people believe that a consensus exists when there is nothing of the sort. Spectrum street epistemology enables this lack of consensus to be exposed. When people see this claim and other contentious claims being discussed, they will realize that they are not alone, and they will consider the quality and quantity of evidence that is available in making these claims. This provides the possibility of connecting with other truth-seeking individuals, and the seeds of courage can be planted in these sessions. A university is an intellectual space where we are supposed to be able to discuss all claims, no matter how controversial. Today, however, many ideas simply cannot be examined. Universities can control the space they allocate because universities have been captured by equity, diversity, and inclusion ideology. And this means that open inquiry and critical thinking and the weighing of evidence no longer occurs in many areas in universities. This not only impacts freedom of expression, but also freedom of thought. Although restrictions on freedom of thought seem like something that is difficult to substantiate, don't we all have the ability to examine things in our heads? But the great journalist and novelist George Orwell alerted us to this problem with his concept of the thought crime. Our thoughts are impacted by our words that we are able to use and the ideas that we can discuss. If our words are limited and we don't have access to a variety of ideas, the quality of our thoughts will be diminished. Therefore, Spectrum Street epistemology is the main hope that we have to push back against the thought control that has been unfolding in our universities since the 1960s. Thank you very much.